Thinking of co-founding a business or buying a double cab pickup? There's something in this one for you. Hi everybody and welcome to the HeelanHub Weekly, where I just reflect on some conversations with clients or the team have had with clients. And in this one, it's kind of two parts. One, I want to talk about co-founding a business or getting a partner and what you should look out for there. It's probably a video in itself actually, but I thought it was a good one to ramble on. And then secondly, I just want to update you some news around double cab pickups. And there was some big thing in the media about that, and where we landed with that, I think it's important to know. So if you enjoy these type of videos, make sure to click the subscribe button and the bell below so you get notified whenever we release more just like it. So then co-founding, I think it's worth talking about that because we've seen, as we do every year as business accountants, we help people with not only starting the business, sometimes changing it or even closing it. And every year there is a point where we have some co-founders or partners who have decided to go their separate ways. If you imagine, it's quite common with everybody having their own lives that things change. Sometimes the direction of the business is not where both of people want to go, and they want to stop that. Sometimes it can be that somebody's financial situation or personal life situation's changed, and therefore, let's say you're building the business, you're not earning that much money, which is quite a frequent journey, and for whatever reason, one of the partners has got to go and sort that out and go and take a paid job, and they've decided, look, they've given it their all, they just don't want to do it anymore for whatever reason. Could be multitude of reasons, could be multiple variable circumstances that lead to that, but ultimately, you're left with this fact that there's a tax consequence normally, or some tax considerations, and certainly some financial considerations to that exit. So if you imagine, let's say we have a limited company and two people owning it 50-50, you've got to think about, well, what happens to those shares? The ownership's done by shares, so the exit in person, what happens? Is the company going to kind of buy those back? Is it being gifted to the shareholder? Is someone else it? Are they giving them up? Is there a dispute? All these kind of things need to be dealt with, and there's tax consequences depending on what's being done. And one of the things, of course, that people don't do very often, and should for best practice when they do form these 50-50 limited companies or partnerships, is get anything written down, either a partnership agreement or a shareholders agreement. Solicitors and lawyers will do these for you, but of course there is a bit of investment up front needed to have these. But it would be far easier in this event that we could refer to a document and everybody was happy that that's what was agreed at the beginning. Because of course everybody thinks it's going to be fantastic, but the reality of the situation is that these things do happen quite frequently. So, and there are other structures that are worth thinking about. So, and this is really what I want to get you thinking about in this video, if you are thinking of co-founding or going in with a partner, is do you actually need to? Could you kind of just do some sort of joint venture where both of you have got your own sole trade or limited company, but one's going to go and build a client and the other person's going to build them for the work they're carrying out? So it's sort of a sideways affair. That can quite often be a good testing ground. And of course, there's loads of, with all things tax and business, there's loads of caveats to this around making sure we're not in some sort of employment relationship and many other factors. But that's just one example of a structure that works quite well. Say in the creative industries, we see a lot of people working in film that are all individual sole traders or limited companies, you know, your producers, your camera people, all that kind of stuff. And they go from project to project. And it might be that one person at some point decides to build a client, but they've got multiple freelancers working on that project with them. And that works quite well because then you've not got two people tied into one limited company trying to figure out how to pay them both, or one partnership and trying to figure out who gets what, and it can get complicated and ultimately it could also fall down. So just think about that when you're getting in. I suppose that's the takeaway from this, is if you are thinking of co-founding, make sure, just think about, is there another structure to test this? Am I sure? Particularly with family businesses, oddly enough, we see just as many family business breakdowns as we do non-family business breakdowns, and it's the same issues all the time. It's normally financial that is the big one, whether somebody wants to move away to go earn more money, or you know, they just don't like, one of them's putting more hours in than the other one and they're both getting paid the same, or there's a disagreement around that. When it's disagreement based, normally money is concerned, but sometimes it is directional. Get plenty of kind of amicable splits where that both partners want to take the business in a different place, and then they're going to go and look at how they kind of demerge and do that, and that's fine as well. But this happens quite frequently, so it's worth thinking about. But in a lot of these cases, we hear the same thing when people say, oh, I kind of wish I'd done this from the start. So just think about it. You don't necessarily need a co-founder, albeit we do see some great co-founded businesses as well. So that's all. I could probably do a video on its own on that, so maybe I'll save more on that later. But yeah, just think about that one. And then the other thing for this week is I just want to talk about some news. So at the minute, limited company, if you've got a double cab pickup, so I always call them monster trucks, but you know, these big trucks, sort of like a Ford Ranger and a Navara, these kind of big 1-ton payload type vehicles, you can have a double cab on them. So you can have sort of 5 seats. And that's great because it allows you then potentially, apart from more workers and more crew and things that you put in there when you're doing it commercially, you can obviously use them for the family a bit more and things like that. So they're quite attractive. And the reason for a tax they're attractive is because they're treated as a van. So there's some good advantages to that. And it means that you don't get, if the company pays it and gives it to you and you use it privately, you pay a relatively small benefit in kind to do that. It's very nice. So as a result, that's good, because normally if it was a car, you'd pay horrendous amounts of personal tax and nobody would want to do it, and it would cause a lot of problems. However, the revenue decided recently, by the time you're listening to this, probably a week ago, came out and said, we're going to change our stance on this. We don't like it. We don't like the vans. We're going to change them into a car. Uproar ensues, motoring groups, accountancy bodies, small business bodies, everybody, because we've got people already in these things. They've made these decisions based on where we're at, and people who want to invest in it now, and given everything else that's going on in the car market at the moment, didn't seem the greatest of ideas. They've done something very rare, and in the space of a week turned around and said, no, don't worry, we're listening, we're not going to change it. We're going to leave it as it is. So if you have got a double cab pickup and you're worried about anything, just know that it got reversed. Because you might see, I'm conscious you might see one part of the story, which is why I didn't immediately report it. I wanted to kind of see what happened. And actually it ended up being, I didn't think I'd be turning around and saying they changed their mind, but they did very quickly change their mind. So double cab pickups, we're still cool. They're still pretty good for tax. And that's it for this HeelanHub Weekly. If you've got any comments or anything else you want to talk about, drop it in below. Please share it with anybody you think needs to know this information. And I'll see you on the next one.